Hello everyone and welcome back to another Dark Souls beginner guide video. Last time I taught the basics of weapon attacks, differences between dexterity and strength weapons, and showed you the shopkeeper, and I also defeated the Taurus demon and we talked to Solaire to unlock summoning for co-op play, and got this shortcut and came back to the bonfire. So we're gonna continue our journey now. It's gonna be pretty straightforward. For this next part, you're gonna want to have a bow. Not a crossbow, but an actual bow. And I don't have one, because I didn't buy one, and I didn't pick one up. Which is fine, because you can buy one from the merchant over here. So, not to worry. We'll just head straight over to the merchant, and, yeah, we'll take care of that. And the reason why you want to get a bow is because we're going to actually go ahead and shoot the tail off of the red drake up there. And that's because Dark Souls actually has a really cool mechanic where if you can cut the tail off of an enemy, something rare that you only see once or twice in the game, then you can get a rare weapon or item from it. There are several enemies in the game where we will be doing that. And the items are usually really powerful and unique. Like, they might have a special enchantment on it that will allow it to do an area of effect attack. Or it might burn something, or whatever. It's really cool, and the item we're going to get is actually really powerful for this early in the game. And it's not very hard to do if you get a bow and some wooden arrows. And you can go to the merchant down here. You don't need anything fancy, just about 1,000 souls for the bow, and then, I'd say about 60 arrows. As long as you hit the tail most of the time, you're gonna get it cut off. So I'm gonna go ahead and just try to equip my stuff now. And the reason why it has to be a bow is because bows can zoom in, while crossbows can't. You can actually get a crosshair if you press the left bumper on an Xbox controller. You can zoom in and see things better. I guess you could free aim with the bow or with a crossbow, but it's actually kind of a pain to do. So get a bow, it's much easier. And typically, if you're going to use any kind of ranged attack, it would be a bow unless you have magic. So you just stand here, and you shoot at his tail, and he will come flying at you, or he can't hit you. You can try and hit it like that again, and he'll fly back up there, and you shoot his tail again. And you keep repeating this for a long time, which is why I'm speeding up the video so that you don't have to sit here for the next 5 minutes, hopefully, a minute at most, of watching me shoot this tail. You can shoot him sometimes when he flies back, there are times when he turns. His tail moves in an idle animation, which is sometimes annoying because you can miss several times like I did. So just keep shooting. I've got 60 arrows and I think I finished with, 20 or so left over when I'm done, and I miss a lot. So you really don't need that much, you just gotta hit it. And in just a few more shots here, his tail should go down. I missed a lot, but if you wait and you're more patient than I was, you should hit his tail more. See, I missed again. But finally, shoot his tail, and you'll get the Drake Sword. And the Drake Sword is a rare weapon, and it will tell you in the description for it that it's a rare dragon weapon made from this dragon's tail, or drake, because this game distinguishes between dragons and drakes and all of that, so technically this is a drake. And it does 200 physical damage, and it has absolutely no scaling, which means that your 200 damage that this sword does is as high as it's going to go unless you upgrade it, which you don't have the material to upgrade it, so don't worry about that. But 200 damage for any weapon this early in the game is a lot. I think, you know, Zweihander doesn't even do 200 damage, and you're doing that with just a straight sword. So a lot of early players get this weapon because it can get you through the first 2 or 3 bosses easily. It's got that special attack for the power attack, and I'm going to use it for a little bit to show you just how awesome it is for this point in the game. You shouldn't really have any problems killing enemies with this thing. Now, that's not to say it's the best weapon ever, because you can make whatever weapon you want to use. So if you want to use a straight sword or a spear, you can make that strong too. And eventually it will be stronger because your character's stats will complement the weapon. So what you want to do now that you have this sword is you need to get past this drake here. And how you do that, there's 2 ways. You can either run over like I did and wait until he flies down. And sometimes you can get past him. He usually doesn't do that attack though. So I was actually kind of surprised that he did that attack, because usually he does like a dash and it completely misses you because you're under him. But don't worry about it too much. It's fine. You can just go back up there and grab it. And that's actually a rare occurrence. So just because it happened my first time doesn't mean it's going to happen forever. So, bad example, but trust me, it'll work. You just sit up here, make sure he knows you're up here. Make him breathe fire at least once. And he'll burn the whole bridge and you get, 500 plus souls every time he does that. So if you're actually looking for souls, you can sit up here and make him breathe the fire, and then when he kills everybody, run back down, rest at the bonfire, and repeat. So here, completely safe, like I said, he does either a fire breath or a dash most of the time. But just because you make it here doesn't mean that you're absolutely safe. You should probably run over here because he does do breath attacks sometimes if you're in the bonfire room. But once you get under him, he flies away like this. And he won't be coming back unless there's a loading screen. So if you die, or if you use a homeward bone to go back to a bonfire, or whatever, you turn off your game and come back, he's not going to return to this bridge. Which means no more soul farming, but it also means that he's not going to bother you anymore. So everything that's on that bridge is now yours to go get. And this statue here, remember this statue, because I'll talk about it some point in the future. But here's another bonfire, and it's not really anything special, just a bonfire, except later in the game we'll be able to come here quickly because there's a group of people you can join, a covenant, but we can't do that right now, and I'm not going to get into that right now. So I just want to make a mention that that's kind of an important spot, sort of. Depends on how you play or want to play. But anyway, here on the bridge we get a claymore and a soul. And the claymore is a greatsword. Now, in terms of speed and damage, typically greatswords are between a straight sword like a longsword and an ultra greatsword like the Zweihander. But that's not always the case. Sometimes you can find a straight sword that's far superior to a great sword. So it really depends on the weapon, but most of the time great swords are better than straight swords. And I'll show off the great sword, the claymore we just got, later in the video, I think, along with maybe a couple other things. So there's still some explaining to be done, but not too much. But whenever you're ready to continue, you lift the gate like I did, and you can run up this tower. I'm going to do this because it's another Black Knight. This time he's got an ultra great sword. And with this Drake sword, I'm doing really, really good damage. On the last one, I was doing like 100 or something when I riposted him. This time I'm doing 342. And I got really lucky again. I've got the Black Knight Greatsword. Now, don't let the name fool you. A Black Knight sword is a greatsword, and a Black Knight Greatsword is an ultra greatsword. They don't tell you that, but I guess think of it in terms of the Black Knights. Because remember, they're bigger and stronger than you are, so to them, the Black Knight sword is a normal sword, and the Great Sword is a great sword to them. But the Black Knight Greatsword to us is an Ultra Greatsword, and it tells you in the weapon type. And the Black Knight Sword is a normal Greatsword, and it tells you in the weapon type. And these are the differences. You can pause the video and check it out. You can see that this is a much bigger sword. Much more powerful, skills stronger in strength. I don't have the stats to use it properly, so my character is going to swing it really slowly and terribly. So I'm not going to be using that. And in theory, I could invest in the strength and the dexterity required to use that, and I could make a character that uses that. But I'm not planning on doing that this time. So I'm going to stick with straight swords and show you just as if you wanted to kind of play a normal knight character. So I said there were two ways to get across this bridge. One is by running under the dragon, which we just did to get to that bonfire. And the other is actually going back to where we shot the dragon's tail. That method is maybe a little safer, but you don't get the bonfire. So here's the other way you can go. We were out here, we shot the dragon's tail, he was up there. You can run along this edge, and there'll be another soldier guy back here. Backstab him or do whatever. And there'll be a spear guy right here. I advise you don't fight him like I'm about to fight him, because your weapon hits the wall there. Instead, you try to lure him past that and then fight him where you killed the first soldier there. And in here, there's going to be rats, and there's going to be 3 of them, and they can poison you, and they do actually attack pretty fast. So you got to be on the lookout for them. And really, once you get in this room and kill at least one of the rats, your world should be a lot easier. Then, once you kill them, you go up this ladder here. And this will take you to the bottom of the tower where I fought the most recent Black Knight with the Ultra Greatsword. But remember, if you go that way, this gate will be closed. You can see the holes in the ground and the wooden spikes up there. And the only way to open it is from this lever right here. And the only way to pull that lever is to run under the red drake like we did before. So if you do choose to go the other way, up the ladder and past those rats and whatnot, you will not have that bonfire that's closer. Not that it matters, because the run isn't that long. Anyway, continuing with the game, if you run up here, you're going to notice the boar in back, and you're going to have these soldier guys here that will attack you. The boar shouldn't really bother you as long as you don't go too far past this archway. We're going to walk a little closer, but you see he doesn't really get upset at us for running near him. You can run up here and kill this spear guy, but you also have the 2 crossbow guys right there, so be careful with who you attack and when you attack. We'll grab these 4 alluring skulls. And I didn't mean to fall there, so don't fall there like I did, otherwise you're going to get ambushed pretty quick. It's not too bad because the boar has a lot of charging attacks, and as long as you watch him, he won't really get the jump on you here. He just charges at you, scares you away, and will walk back as long as you're not to the top of these stairs here. He shouldn't really bother you. Now, he's very heavily armored and does a lot of damage. He's sort of like a mini-boss for this area. If you can get a backstab, or really it's more of a butt stab, because you literally shove your sword up its butt to kill it. It does a ton of damage, and it's pretty much a one-shot kill. The only problem is that getting it is a little tricky, and you have to position yourself just perfectly and have all things aligned so that it works. You can also use magic or pyromancy or miracles if you have an offensive miracle, which you probably don't. I guess you could shoot him with arrows, but that's not going to work very well. So, or you could just run past him, or you could just beat on him with your sword. He will die eventually. But here we go. That right there should kill him. If it doesn't, it makes your world a lot easier, so you shouldn't have to worry too much about killing him after that. And with that, everything's pretty much dead. There is one little note, is that if you ran to the top of the stairs and you ran straight past everything, this gate is actually open, and the guy behind it that we can see right now closes it on you. So, if you run fast enough and don't get hit by anything, it is possible to actually make it to the other side of this gate before it closes. But more than likely, you're not going to get it, and I never worry about that. So we're going to go this way. Important to note, you will get ambushed if you run and follow that guy. There are guys to the sides that are waiting to attack you. So really, just take it nice and easy around here. You can get ambushed by a number of guys, and even though these guys are weak, they do have a flurry attack, which they usually do that growl thing before. So just try to go for one at a time, don't make bold moves. Even though they're weak, they can kill you, and you don't really want to die right here. Make sure you grab this key right here, the mystery key, because if you don't have the master key, then you need that key if you want to do a side quest. Or at least if you kind of want to be part of the side quest. There's a couple guys here. If you have the Drake sword, you're probably doing just fine right now. You should be one-shotting most enemies. And you can run over here, pick up the soul. So really, I show off the Drake sword here. I don't really use it myself, but the first time I played, I did, because somebody told me it was really handy, and it is really handy. And if you're still confused on that stat stuff, you won't have to worry about it as much right now. Alright, so we're going to go to the right, and we're going to come across a new type of enemy. This guy's got a buckler for parrying and a rapier. If you walk slowly, you can walk up to him and backstab him, just like the Black Knight, the first one that I killed. And you can get a Knight Shield once you defeat him. You don't have to backstab him, but he's got kind of a lot of health right now. In terms of stats for the Knight Shield, it's actually kind of worse than the Heater Shield, and it weighs a lot more. The only thing about it is it's got one more point of stability, but that's really not enough to make you want to use it. So I'd stick with the Heater Shield for now. And then, once you kill him, you want to run up here and deal with this spear guy. You can kick him, or you can attack and then parry. They'll pretty much always fall for the attack-parry combo. And then you want to go over here, and you're going to get ambushed. So you can either run over here and quickly dispatch this guy, like I did, because there's going to be another one of these guys, who looks a lot like the guy with the buckler and the rapier, except this is a medium shield and sword combo. So there's two types of those guys. There's a sword and shield version, and then there's a rapier and buckler version. And the sword and shield version I think are easier to kill, and they seem to be a little bit weaker. Plus their sword is pretty good if you can get it, but it's usually a really rare weapon, so you're probably not going to get it. It is a dexterity weapon if you do happen to get it, and it's called the Balder Side Sword. But then after you kill those guys, we're going to want to go this way and just run straight ahead for that small doorway you see. Because on the right here is going to be a giant mace-wielding knight. We don't want to die right now. He shouldn't get you if you just sprint straight for this elevator here, because the Crestfallen Warrior guy said the lift was broken up to the first Bell of Awakening, which is this elevator actually. So we just fixed it by sending it down because it's a two-way elevator and both were at the top. So once you go down it, one side goes down, and then from then on, one side will go up and one will go down when you try to go back up there. So it's a shortcut. And now it's fixed, so we can go up there at any time from Firelink, which is great because Firelink is already a kindled bonfire. It's got whoever we've got around here with us, which Firelink will become more populated as the game progresses. There will be probably, I'd say 5 steady, constant people here for a while. They won't go anywhere until near the end of the game. So, but it's nice to have this bonfire because then you can just take this lift right up with 10 flasks and your world is a lot easier. And it gives you some time to level up or do whatever you need to do. I put some more points in dexterity because if I remember correctly, the sword I want to use requires 22 dexterity. So that's where I'm at. The only problem is when you rest the bonfire, sometimes enemies like this don't reset, which is weird. So this guy might actually be here. And he's big, he's scary, but he's actually pretty weak. Like, I'm only doing 97 damage, but he doesn't have that much health. Where, let's say, a normal enemy would have, 500 health, and I do 150 per hit. It evens out in the end. So, he gave us a Titanite Shard. I'm pretty sure that's guaranteed. And we're going to want to grab this Firekeeper Soul here. Don't worry, we'll talk about that and what it does later, but for now I want you to look and see that there's a dude with a giant, candlestick trident thing up there. He is a channeler, and he's also unique. Once you kill the mace guy and the channeler guy, you won't have to worry about killing them again. They'll be gone. These guys, though, with the capes here, and the rapiers and shields and all that, they do come back every time, which is not bad because they give you 200 souls for killing them, and if you have the Drake Sword, you should be 2-shotting them, maybe 3-shotting at the most. Now the trick to the channeler up here is that he does his chanting there. You're going to notice everybody starts glowing like this. That means they're frenzied, and they do more damage, and they tend to attack more frequently, too. So, if usually they would just kind of hang back and walk slowly, they're going to try and attack you as much as they can now. And they're going to do like 1.5 or 2 times the damage doing it. And while that doesn't seem like it'd be very great for these weak guys, if they can hit you with that flurry attack, they can kill you in about 3 or 4 hits. So it makes them really dangerous. And there's, about 12, maybe 15 guys. And then it's just you and the channeler. The channeler will be different, but he's not really tough except for his magic. He doesn't really stagger, but you gotta watch out for that spinning trident attack, because that lasts a little longer than you think. Now, after you've killed him, most of the enemies up here are dead. There is one more guy, but he shouldn't really bother you until we go that way. So you can take your time to kind of look around this area. If you go over here to the left, this will actually take you to the boss. you climb this ladder, and that'll take you to the boss fight of the area. But we don't want to do that right now. We want to instead go to the right hallway here. And we want to run towards these stairs. This is the last guy up here, so once you kill him, there's nothing else to worry about. You can parry him. You can just kill him. Whatever your method is for these guys, take him out. Balder leggings. Okay. So, now we're going to go up these steps and go all the way past this. This is actually something that you hit and break, but we're going to go past it for a second. We'll go there in just a moment. But we want to run over here to this dead body in a barrel. Wait for it to fall, and it'll say pillage corpse, and you get a humanity for free. So that's one hard humanity you can crush later to add to your counter in the top left there, just in case you needed another one. And over here, we're going to run into another guy, and he's got his own quest too.
Still human, are you? Then I am in luck. Could you help me? As you can see, I am stuck without recourse.
So you have the option of freeing him by just opening the door or not. I'm going to free him.
Thank you. Yes, sincerely. I am Knight Lautrec of Karim. I truly appreciate this, and I guarantee a reward. Only later. Yes, very sorry. Your reward will have to wait. I've just been freed. Allow me some time. I am free. Now, I can get back to work. I am free.
So I just freed him, and I recommend freeing him, because he will give you an item for free, and it means that you won't have to get it later. It's not that great. It's not going to change your game or anything. It's not even something that you can really use. It's actually just something that you turn in to rank up in a covenant, and you can get a reward if you turn in a number of them, but we're not going to really get into that too much. But it is something technically useful. So, next we're going to take out this guy here. He has a friend that sits in the corner in the next room, which he's going to run up here. You can get the guy in the corner to come forward first and not bother the guy that is blocking right now, but I've done this enough times where I've gotten it down, so it doesn't really matter. But if you do struggle with these guys, then there is a way to lure them one at a time. You take the guy from the corner first, then you take the guy right about here, and then you take this guy that I'm fighting now. And we'll just go ahead and take care of that last guy. Now, if you've noticed, I've been really lucky with item drops recently, and that's probably because I have one soft humanity on me right now. If you look down here, it says humanity 1. It's that 0-1 in my counter. It actually tells you under humanity that it gives you item discovery if you have any. So instead of 100, I have 150 item discovery. So if you want some of these items that I'm getting, you could pop a humanity. But humanity is not infinite, and it's not hard to get, but we're not really at a good spot where you can get a lot easily. So we're going to save it for now. And finally, doing that whole loop out here, running all the way around, going through that room, we get to the other side of that gate I pointed out earlier. And that guy that was standing behind it, and I said you could run through past the boar and all that. If you're lucky, you can make it. But he's dead, and on this body was a basement key, which we are going to need to get to the next area. So actually, what's interesting is you don't have to do the boss I just pointed out a few minutes ago right now. You can wait, and you can go down into Lower Undeadburg, which I haven't showed you how to get there, and I'm not going to in this video. But you can get down there, and you can do the boss after this one, and then the boss after that one, and after that one, and kind of skip this boss for now. You have to come back and do this boss. I wouldn't recommend skipping it, but you technically can. And there's an even earlier way of doing that if you had the master key and go through a couple shortcuts, but that is another story. You can watch videos of people on YouTube. They say, you know, Dark Souls 1 overpowered in 10 minutes. There's a lot of stuff where they do a lot of tricks like that. So if you're interested in seeing that kind of stuff, you should check out some of those videos because they're pretty cool. However, I don't recommend those unless you've played the game, because they're going to involve some tricks and using some techniques that you aren't going to be very good at. It's certainly one way to get good at the game, but it's kind of tricky, so I wouldn't really recommend looking those up until after you've at least gotten familiar with the game. Anyway, your main goal is to get over here to this side passage. I guess I'm showing here that I have been picking up other armor, but so far the hard leather armor is the best armor. I could wear this metal chest piece, I'll sound different and I'll look different, but the stats really aren't that great. So I'm gonna stick with the hard leather armor pretty much the whole time until I decide I want to wear a different armor set. So your main goal though is to go down this side path that I've been going down and get to this bonfire. And this hammering is completely fine, nothing's going to get you. And this bonfire is also going to be a very important bonfire that you are going to come back to multiple times. So go ahead and kindle it if you want. This is pretty much one of two bonfires I'd go from if you want to do the boss up here. So go ahead and kindle it because you're probably going to want to access it later. We're going to come down here and we're going to meet the second blacksmith, who's actually, you know, hammering like blacksmiths do.
Well, you must be a new arrival. I'm Andre of Astora. If you require smithing, then speak to me.
So a couple things you can do is you can learn a gesture, but you're going to want to talk to him a little bit because he'll tell you about smithing.
Most weapons and armor are mighty sturdy indeed, but every hunk of metal has its breaking point. If you notice durability running low, it's time to repair. You can ask a blacksmith like myself, or do it on your own with a grindstone. The nice thing about weapons, they never betray you, so pay them a little respect, eh? There are two types of weapon forging. There's reinforcement and there's ascension. Reinforcement is simple. It strengthens the weapon and nothing more. A simple task for any blacksmith. Hell, you could even do it yourself with a smith box. But ascension's a finer art. It alters a weapon's properties. Ascension is the territory of we blacksmiths. A smith box just won't do the trick. Start out with reinforcement. When that loses its charm, you can consider ascension. As you've noticed, this land is flush with the mad and wicked. You won't make it through the night without employing my services. You can forge armor just like you do weapons. Forging armor is even easier than forging weapons. Whether you forge weapons or armor first, well, that's up to you. But nobody wants to see you go hollow. So whatever you do, you'd better do it well. You can forge whether you so.
So I guess a couple of really important things to note is that when you upgrade a weapon in this game, it's not just you upgrade it once, it's got a better version, that's it, or there are, you know, different ranks. There's actually a slight difference. So if you choose modify equipment, it says you need a special ember to do that, and you can choose reinforced weapon just like the magic blacksmith, and you'll be able to upgrade your weapon to be stronger right now. And that's something that if you've been running around in the cathedral, like, church thing that we were running around with the Baldur Knights, then you should probably have at least a couple Titanite to upgrade your weapon with. But you need Titanite shards to upgrade your weapon from nothing to anything stronger. And you can buy those here from him, which is why he's pretty much the main blacksmith, because you're going to do a lot of normal reinforcing instead of like magic or fire or lightning. So you're going to do a lot of normal stuff. His inventory, really, you could buy the weaponsmith box, you can buy the armor box, but really you're going to want to buy the repair box. And don't worry about the Crest of Artorias too much right now. It's really, really expensive, and it's going to lead us to a boss fight that we're not going to do for a while yet. So he mentioned that at a smith box you can reinforce weapons and armor instead of going to him. It's basically the way of saying if you need to make your weapon stronger and you're at a bonfire and don't want to come here, you can do that there. And the repair box is the exact same thing. Instead of going to a blacksmith, you can go to a bonfire and repair your weapon. So that's actually pretty handy to have, because you'll be able to repair your weapon anywhere, where I really don't think you need to reinforce your weapon or armor anywhere, but that's totally up to you. You're probably going to want to buy all three and try it for yourself. Other important things is he sells a lot of different types of weapons that you don't really have access to anywhere else. Like he sells a battle axe, and he sells a different kind of sword, war pick, cestus, pike, some shields that we haven't seen yet, and a bastard sword, which is like the claymore. It's a great sword, so it's another option. So really, for customizing your character, you really kind of wait until you get here, because this is when it all happens. You can upgrade your weapons, you can choose what kinds of weapons you want to use, and you have a lot more freedom and choice. So now is about the time where you start thinking about kind of what character you want to build. And you can still wait a couple boss fights, it's nothing too big, but just kind of think about it. In this game, when you go to make your weapons better, he mentions that there are two kinds. There's reinforcement, which makes the weapon stronger, and nothing else. It just means that your sword will do more damage from making it stronger. With armor, it means that it has higher defense without doing anything. When you have reinforced your weapon enough times and you've given him an ember or something to progress, he will get into weapon modification, or it's also called ascension, which actually changes the weapon into something a little bit better. So you can take a normal weapon and make it a fire weapon. You can take this claymore and make it a lightning claymore. You can make it crystal. That's an option. Magic, you can make it with certain bosses. If you defeat them, you can actually turn this sword into a completely different sword. And that actually applies to really any weapon. It's not just the claymore. It could be a club. It could be the cestus. There are a lot of choices. Back to what I'm actually doing right now in game, I'm just showing the weapon moveset for great swords. The claymore is a great sword, so is the bastard sword, and great swords have different movesets than ultra great swords. If you remember, Zweihander was slower and had more stabs and really heavy swings. And great swords are kind of a nice in-between from a straight sword and an ultra great sword. So you can see that it's a little faster, but will also pack a big punch because it's slower than a normal sword and you do more devastating attacks. Just wanted to show that off because I didn't have a great sword to do that with before. And see, it says great sword or ultra great sword for weapon type. So that was Zweihander. And I'll show it off again here. I can't even use this one-handed effectively. I have to use this two-handed. So you can see that Zweihander swings heavier and you get like stabs or other slams instead of like spin attacks. It's also important to note that you drain more stamina when using Zweihander or any other ultra great sword, and it is a lot heavier. So I'm doing a fat roll right now, which I talked about in the last video, that fat rolling is something that happens when you're over 50% of your carry weight. So I do a medium run, medium roll, medium everything right now. If I try to put on the heaviest things I can right now to try and get encumbered a little bit. Let's see. I can run around like this. I think I'm still medium rolling here. This is a heavy move. That was heavy running and heavy rolling that I did earlier. Like this. That's heavy rolling. You can see it's a lot less agile than a medium roll. And you really don't move as fast. Things are just a lot tougher like this. Even though it looks like I'm not wearing a lot, I kind of am. And if I try to put on even more stuff, like a second weapon in my right hand, then I'll be able to actually go even slower or not roll at all. Because it says my equipment load on the right here is 32.7 out of 53. So I'm over the halfway mark, not by a ton, but still over it by a good amount. So you can actually calculate the difference there. So 32.7 divided by 53. That's actually a 61, almost 62% encumbrance. So I would have to be under 50. So I'd have to either take some stuff off or level up certain stats so that I could actually wear that stuff effectively if I wanted to. Now, I can make my character even heavier by applying a second weapon in each slot, and now I'm not even running. I can't jog. This is fully maxed out, encumbered. You can't roll. You just kind of stagger like that. You can still be knocked over. It's not like because you're walking heavy, nothing can hurt you. You really can't move at all. So that's something you definitely want to avoid. It's not like, oh, you can just keep equipping things and it doesn't get any worse. It does reach a limit. So I wanted to show that because I talked about it in the last video, but I never actually went and showed it. Mainly because I didn't have a lot of the things to make me heavy like that. So there you go. Let's go back down here, and I think I'm gonna upgrade this normal longsword instead of using the Drake sword, just to show that it is actually possible to do this game without the Drake sword. Because I've been saying it's an awesome weapon and you don't really have to worry about the game too much. So if you found that cheap or something and you're like, oh, well, that's not really fair, then you can do what I'm doing, which is going to reinforce my weapon. Which, remember, that is just making my sword stronger, not doing anything else. Interestingly enough, it's actually kind of predictable how much damage your weapon is going to do in your next few upgrades. So, like, this longsword started at 80. Every time I upgrade it, it's going up by 8 each time. If that first number was, 120, you take the first 2 digits, which is 12, and it's going to go up by 12 points every time I upgrade it. So the goal when finding a weapon is find something that has decent scaling for you. Find something that has a good base damage, and when you upgrade it, it's going to be worth it more to you, because the scaling will be great, and the higher base damage will also be great when you go to upgrade it. Eventually, you will reach a maximum. You won't be able to upgrade your weapon any higher, and that's where the scaling really takes effect, because the only extra damage that you're going to be able to do is by leveling up your character himself. So, really, if you can, you want to try and get a weapon up to +5. Whatever weapon you think you're going to be using the most. I'm going to stick with a longsword, which is now 120 plus 45 instead of 80 plus 45. And I actually have multiple longswords, so I can show the difference between the two. This weapon is, 40 points more damage than a base longsword for upgrading it. So that's actually really nice. It means that my character is just going to do 40 points more damage to any enemy, and so I should be able to one-shot or two-shot a lot more enemies than I was able to before. It's going to require a lot of Titanite shards to get it upgraded, so you're going to have to spend souls to buy some, or you're just going to have to farm for them from the enemies that we've beaten so far. And if you do go this way down the path, you're going to see this thing throwing lightning. That's why I didn't go down there, because you can definitely run past it or defeat it, but I figured that's not really important right now. So the only other thing I can think of right now before we go ahead and start going towards the boss fight to actually go do it is to run over here towards this giant gate. Remember this, because we're going to go through here later. But you want to talk to this guy here.
Oh, forgive me. I was absorbed in thought. I am Siegmeyer of Katarina. Quite honestly, I've run flat up against a wall. Or a gate, I should say. The thing just won't budge, no matter how long I wait. And oh, have I waited. So here I sit, in quite a pickle, weighing my options, so to speak. Still closed. Still closed. Still closed. Still.
So this really friendly guy sitting here is Siegmeyer of Katarina, and he's also known in the community as Onion Bro because he looks like an onion, and that's actually something that's in the game. From Software actually puts in the description of the armor that these knights are mocked because of their onion-like shape, which is kind of interesting because curved armor was actually better for certain things. You couldn't always strike a straight-on blow because the armor was curved like that. So it's actually kind of a better defensive technique than what standard armor is like. But anyway, the game actually says that those knights, they're proud of being a knight, and there are people that are making fun of them just because of their armor. And yes, they are known for being onion-looking. That's not just something people made up. So kind of interesting. Anyway, you want to talk to him because if you don't talk to him, he will eventually go away. And you have to talk to him in another spot where you can completely miss him if you're not careful. And if you don't talk to him that second time, you don't get to do his quest line. Which isn't that important. You're not going to get anything super critical, but it again is something that I want to show because I'm trying to show you a walkthrough of what this game is like completed and just how deep this game actually gets versus, somebody who's just going through and killing bosses, because there's a lot more to it than that. And even though it seems like a lot and it seems overwhelming, it will all make sense in time, and I'm sure you'll actually be happy that you played this game and beat it. Because we're just going to go at this pretty slow. Nothing too much. We're not going to overload you too much. We're just going to take it nice and easy, and you'll put the game together as you play. And as we kind of explain some things to piece the game together. So, when you are ready, you want to go up the path. I pointed out this was the way to the boss. You also, I should have mentioned this before, you also want to be human if you want help for this, because there could be other players, and if there's not, there definitely is a computer up here to help you. It's Solaire. He told us, he said, hey, look for my brilliantly shining sign, and I will help you with any trial that you have. So you can summon him if you want. There is a downside. If you summon him, the boss actually gets a little bit harder because there's more people. They get more health, they might do different attacks or whatever. That happens every time you summon somebody for a boss. Usually, just having the extra person for distraction helps. So choose to summon him if you want. I might as well go ahead and summon him just to show you how great he is at the game. Because when I first played this, I didn't summon anybody. And I know I had a hard time doing some things. So we're going to go ahead and summon Solaire to, see Phantom in action. This will be a computer, and it'll be helpful, and you'll see just how useful they really are. And remember, this is just a computer. So if you find that this is really awesome for a computer, imagine a human player who knows what they're doing. It's pretty cool. So when you're ready, go through this fog, and you're not going to have to fight a boss right away. Just like the other ones, there's a gap between you and the start of the fight. But when you run up ahead, you're going to have a cutscene. Alright, so the Bell Gargoyle. This fight is pretty important. It's basically your first major fight, because you need to kill this in order to get to the bell. Now, I mentioned that if you cut off some enemies' tails, they give you special weapons. Here is one of those times. This boss has a tail, you can cut it off, you get a tail axe, which we'll look at maybe later. But for now, the most important thing is that you and Solaire will probably do pretty well together. But when you get to half health of the first one, you're going to have a second gargoyle show up, and it's going to start doing some fire breath. The first one will also try to do some fire breath, so you have to be careful about flying attacks and fire breath. Overall, if you just kind of spam and heal yourself, with Solaire's help, this fight shouldn't be too bad. And a cool thing happens when you summon Solaire. Since he's golden, you get a sunlight medal, which is cool. That's a Covenant item that we're probably not going to do anything with, but if we were getting heavily into the Covenant that it's aligned with, then it'd be useful. And every time you summon a golden person, you get one. And if you are a golden person, you get one too. So that's the reason why you want to join them. Anyway, yeah, that was a super short boss fight. I didn't even get to talk about strategy, really. It's really more intimidating than it is hard. With Solaire, he has a lot of health, and he can pretty much hold his own. So you shouldn't struggle too much. And this is your first Bell of Awakening. There's only 2 of them, so we've got one more to do, but it's probably going to be a few videos before we get to it. And that's it. There's nothing else to it, just a short little video of ringing the bell. If you end up hearing that bell ring before, it lets you know that somebody else has actually just beaten the gargoyles and rang the bell. It's pretty cool that they have that kind of stuff in the game. This guy wasn't here before.
I am Oswald of Karim, the Palm. Thou art a friend. For thee, a warm welcome. cometh thou to confess, or to accuse? For indeed all sin is my domain.
So Oswald can teach you this gesture, which is a lot of people's favorite gesture, but he also takes care of sinning and absolution. That only really happens for online play. Sinning happens when you kill another person like you that's playing the game, another human person, or if you kill another NPC person like Oswald, or if you go to a covenant and break their rules. They say, hey, here are our rules, don't kill other covenant members, or whatever the deal is. They all have guidelines. If you break those, you sin too. And the whole purpose of it is for another online group to punish you. If you do wrong, if you don't leave the covenant the way they want you to leave it, if you break their rules, if you kill people just for fun, whatever the case is, another group of people is designed to sit here and find you to kill you. It's an online thing completely, so if you're playing offline, then there's nothing to worry about, really. You can kill anything you want at any time, and it's not really going to matter. He also sells some interesting things like this talisman, which scales completely off of intelligence, but you do need the faith to use the miracles. So if you have a spell or a miracle, like force, it might require 10 faith. You still have to have that 10 faith, but the damage it does will scale from your intelligence alone. None of your faith. So it's kind of interesting. So if you're a sorcerer and you really wanted to use miracles and you wanted them to do damage, you could use that maybe.
It is only human to commit a sin. I am pleased to see thee preserving thy humanity. Thou art welcome.
He also, can tell you some interesting story stuff, and he sells a couple miracles. So this is the gesture he gives you. It's a lot of people's favorites, especially for PvP, and it's just kind of fun to have. So that is your first major boss fight, and another guy that we probably won't really do much with. I did buy from him a Purging Stone, which is a consumable item that will cure your character of Curse, and Curse is just a terrible effect to have in this game. So I bought it as a backup. I would suggest you do the same to have at least one, but we're going to try not to get cursed. So if you're all the way up there and you don't want to run all the way back to this bonfire here, you can use a homeward bone, which I haven't shown yet, so I wanted to show, and I've talked about it a couple times, but it's an item that you can just use like your flask, and it will take you to the last bonfire you sat down at. So in this case, it was the blacksmith. If you were from Firelink and you went up and killed the boss, it'd take you back to Firelink, which is exactly where I'm going. So as we approach the end of this video, we are just going to go ahead and run back to Firelink. You can kill guys, you can farm for whatever you need. If you want to upgrade your weapon, you can get souls and level up your character more if things are hard for you and you want to hopefully make them a little easier. You can also just, go straight back to Firelink like I'm going to do. And we'll take care of a few extra things, but for the most part, this video is over. We're just going to talk to a few people. I'll actually get a couple items that we don't have yet. And I'm not going to do any other areas, but I'm basically going to just prepare for the next episode. Because the next episode, we're going to have to run back to an area we've been to before and defeat another boss. Or, I guess we don't have to defeat it, but we can get an item. So you can, when you're going down the lift, like I was doing, get off here at this kind of stone platform, and there is an item over there that we haven't been able to get to until the lift was working. And what you do to get to it is you jump off of this cliff onto that beam that I was just looking at. And then you run over there and you can fall on top of a building and get that item. I don't think I show it in this video, but I'm going to get it in the next video. But that's a key that we're going to use next time. So I wanted to point that out because it is important. And if you wanted to keep playing or trying to do something or explore a new area, you can go ahead and do that. Also, something you're going to want to do is, here's Lautrec. We freed him.
I have your reward. Please, accept it.
And so he gives us a sunlight
I'm
medal.
grateful to you for freeing me. Not enough for you? Well, let's not be greedy now. You again. What is it? Our futures are murky. Let's not be too friendly now. Our future.
Sometimes if you keep talking to him, he'll talk to you about the other people that are around here. And he'll tell you interesting things, more story things. So that's pretty cool.
Why, what a surprise.
And now that we've rang the bell, we can talk to this crestfallen warrior.
Somebody rang the bell. Wait, was it you? You never give up, do you? I don't know how you do it. Well, don't stop now. Only one more. But it's going to be suicide. Don't you ever think to forge your weapons? You'd better find a smith box soon, unless you enjoy swinging about with blunt instruments. What's wrong? Get a bit of a scare out there. We'll both be hollow before you know. Well, I've already decided. I don't really care. I'm simply crestfallen. How did that silly sorcerer's apprentice end up? You know, the one always prattling on about Master Logan. He left for the undead burg, but never came back. Serves him right. If even old Big Hat can't make it out there, what chance does he have? I hope he enjoys his new life as a hollow. What now? I'm not up for chatting.
So, before we end this, things you should consider. That crestfallen warrior guy just told us about a sorcerer's apprentice that went to Undeadburg and never returned. So, if you're looking for something to do and want to explore on your own, you can go up to Undeadburg and try looking for him. You can also get that key and maybe find out how to use it. And you can just keep talking to people or keep trying to kill enemies, upgrade your stuff or whatever. Next time we're probably going to do at least one boss, maybe two. But we're going to go into 2 new areas at least. So that's something to look forward to. But for now, that's going to be the end of this video. Thank you for watching. I hope it helped, and I will see you guys at the next video.